What's going on, guys? Magdallan here. For a long time, I've wanted to include some guitar lesson content on the channel. I just hadn't figured out exactly how I wanted to do that. And recently, I've been taking a break from my main game, Path of Exile. I've been playing some other games, and I've been spending a lot more time working on my guitar technique. I've been streaming about an hour or so of my daily practice routine over on Twitch. And one of the things that I've been working on is this little passage from a Mozart piano sonata. I've been trying to arrange some of that stuff for guitar, and when I came across this lick, I thought that it would be a good jumping off point for starting to share with you guys a little bit of how I think about the instrument. And one way that I do that is pretty similar to the way that I would approach a video game. I often tend to be a grinder. I like to find a type of content that I really enjoy, and then I figure out how to min-max it, so to speak, for my enjoyment and profitability in the game, whatever the context is. In Path of Exile, that happens to be mapping content. I really enjoy figuring out ways that I can have a bunch of fun and also fairly efficiently farm up currency that I can use to buy cool items and do other fun stuff in the game. And in the same way, with guitar, for me, I tried to find exactly the same thing, a type of content that I could really dive into in the long haul. And for me, that's been the classical repertoire. And in this case, the Mozart piano sonatas are just full of wonderful scale ideas and melodic passages, melody ideas that you can use to enhance your improvisation or your riff writing, your solo writing, all of that stuff. And so I want to talk about 3 different ways that I would think about a passage like this and use it to enhance my playing. And so, yeah, let me play the lick for you and then we'll go over all that stuff. Alright, we're in the key of D major, and we're on the 8th fret here. I'll just play it in strict alternate picking, nice and slow. Yeah. And so the first way that I would use this to my advantage is, and this may not be the case for you, but it is for me, I tend to struggle with passages that are fast, where I have to incorporate moving my wrist back and forth horizontally across the fretboard. And those transitions tend to trip me up, and so I end up either rushing a note or skipping a note or just in some other way muddying up the passage. So to give you that idea, let me just try and play this fast and we'll see what happens. That was okay, but it's not strictly in time because I'm having to compensate for that movement. And so the way that I might get that to sound better is I'll isolate the parts and then take a second and then do the switch and then play it. And then make sure I'm in the exact right spot and then do the same thing. And I might do that for a little bit and then work it up a little bit in speed and then just keep trying to get that more fluid. I find a passage like this when I'm studying the repertoire, and then I use it to really focus in on something that I'm not good at, that I'm not happy with in my playing, and I just hyper focus on that until I'm more happy with it. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to be just happy all the time with the way that you play, but this is a way that I've found that I can soften the edges of those problems without having to completely derail everything else I'm doing. Is I sort of find these passages naturally through working through repertoire or learning a tune, or maybe I come up with some idea that I want to write and I need to do some sweep passage or something. So then I might go to the Chopin repertoire and try and find passages where he's sweeping, or where you would sweep if you were arranging that piece for guitar, and use it in the same way that I'm using this. And I've just found that to be really helpful, so maybe you will as well. So another way that I might use a lick like this is to just quote it outright, either in part or in whole, within a composition or an improv session or whatever. And you see jazz and blues guys do this a lot more frequently. They'll quote their peers or the greats. There's a lot of licks that are kind of endemic to the culture that surrounds those genres that you'll hear guys play, and the crowd knows what they're doing, the other musicians kind of know what they're doing, and it's just kind of fun. And it's more about when you do it and how tastefully it's done. And so I find that when I'm writing a metal composition and I try and incorporate a Mozart quote or something like that, it doesn't really detract from my creativity. It enhances it. And so, yeah, give that a try and see if you're able to figure out a way to make that work for you. And the last way that I use these licks to my advantage, I think, is the most practical and the most important, and it's the way that I tend to spend the most time thinking about and utilizing in my daily practice, and that is to take something like this and break it into little positions or chunks, and then use those to force yourself out of the patterns that you already have under your fingers if you're a caged player or 3-note per string, whatever. This is a way that I force myself out of that habit, at least temporarily, to come up with some new content, some new ideas. And so in this case, the lick is pretty obviously broken down into these 4 positions, and so let me just play those. So the first one, second one, third one, and the last one. And I might just noodle around in a couple of those positions and just make random stuff up. Okay, so maybe something cool there popped out, maybe not. I might just do that for a while, and then I'll incorporate the third position, and then I'll get to all 4. Maybe I'll try and write one melody that, an 8-bar phrase that uses all 4 of the positions or cycles through them a certain number of times. I'll just come up with little exercises, little games to play that force me to make stuff up. And I have found that over the years that has created a lot of really interesting interactions, even with the patterns that I already know. So for example, your basic minor pentatonic is right on top of this lick. If we're starting on the 8th fret here and we're in the key of D major, B minor, here's our position 1 pentatonic. And so you can start to incorporate that into your everyday playing. And maybe in the end, only one of these positions or 2 of them are things that I will sort of include in my permanent, bag of tricks that I pull out when I'm improvising or when I'm trying to compose. But if you get one idea that you can then use permanently to make your melodic creativity increase, then I think it's time well spent. And so, yeah, I hope some of this was interesting to you or valuable in some way. If you did like the content, please do hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.